All right, so welcome everybody to our Vanguard informational session here through the office of Urella. Thank you for joining us. Hopefully you know what Urella stands for, but if you don't, it is undergraduate research, experiential learning, and honors. So all things experiential learning, we are your go-to. We want to make sure that you're hearing about awesome opportunities locally and nationally. And so that's why we have Vanguard here today, one of our employer partners. I am going to head or pass the torch over to Mr. White and Ms. Harris. We appreciate you joining us today. We also want to thank Ms. Shonda Pell and Ms. Terry Paul Smith for being on the line. They're from the Office of Urella, and you'll hear from them a little bit later. But just to get the party started, go ahead. If you have any questions from the very beginning, please put them in the chat or definitely feel free. I'm going to take this liberty, but they might tell you do something different. To unmute, show your face, be interactive, make sure that they remember who you are. You never know who is sitting in front of you when that next opportunity comes, and you might have already met them on an information session. So we look forward. Thank you so much for joining us, and welcome to DSU, Ms. Harris and Mr. White. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm
Thank you.
happy to kick us off here. And Danielle, I appreciate that. And, we have a smaller group today, so please let's make this as interactive as possible. I'm sure everyone will have some questions, and me and Brittany will do the best we can to answer those. But to start off, so just some introductions here. My name is Eric White. I graduated from the University of Georgia in 2016 with a degree in economics and international business. And I started my career at Vanguard shortly after in the Charlotte office. So it's been almost, or a little over 4 years now, coming up on 5 years at Vanguard. So throughout my experience, I started in the retail investor group on our frontline phones, answering questions from clients anywhere from, I forgot my password, help me reset it, to I just sold a business for $10 million. How do I invest it? And everything in between. So through that opportunity, got to gain a huge competency in understanding how people retire their money when they look at the market, when they look at CNBC or the Wall Street Journal. What are they looking at in terms of putting their money to work for them so that they can be able to retire comfortably? They can send their kids to college. They can give to their favorite charities or their favorite causes. And those things are, extremely important in the backbone of like financial literacy in this country. So what I'll also be talking about today is the Investment Management Development Program, which we'll get into some details, but I did that directly after being in retail and came up to Vanguard's Malvern office, but I live in Philadelphia. And so we'll be happy to speak on that experience as well. I left that rotational program last year during March when the world ended, and am now a municipal money market trader. Happy to give a lot of context about that. But for now, I'll pass it over to Brittany to introduce herself.
Yeah, thank you. And of course, any questions, feel free to ask away. But Brittany Harris, I work out of our Pennsylvania office as well. I graduated from the University of Delaware, so different Delaware. But back in 2019, I majored in financial planning and had a minor in trust management. So my journey to Vanguard was like honestly a long process. I had Vanguard on my radar since I honestly was like a freshman in college. So I attended different events and also started as an intern. So summer going into my senior year, I was an intern in our college to corporate advice program, which was specifically looking at financial advisors. Then after graduating, I took on a full-time position in the financial advisor development program, which I'll talk a lot more about, but it is a rotational program leading up to be a financial advisor. I just recently finished that program a couple months ago, and I guess you can say successfully graduated from it. And now I sit as a CFP, a certified financial planner, and a financial advisor with my own book of business. So I help manage assets could vary between different clients, but about 500,000 to 2 million. And we'll love to talk about what does a financial advisor do, what that all involves, and also about the program. But I think we'll get to that a little later. And then Eric, if you want to take it from here, talk very generally about Vanguard, I can chime in as well.
Yes, I think we want to start off at a high level. What is Vanguard? Who is Vanguard? What do we do? So Vanguard is an investment management company and growing, a very large financial technology aspect to the company. So we manage portfolios for individuals, businesses, trusts, and institutional clients. So anywhere from somebody, saving for their home to large foundations and pension plans, investing billions of dollars in some cases for the pensions and retirement plans for the employees of the plan. So what does that look like? We kind of split it amongst a couple of different groups. You do have your group that will, like I said, be on the phone with clients, talking with them directly. What are their goals? What are their objectives? How do they see themselves using their money in the future? And what's interesting about Vanguard that's different from a lot of other financial institutions is that the way we're set up is 100% to provide value back to our clients. We don't have any shareholders. We don't have any higher power telling us how to run our business. Instead, the way that we earn money for our clients is by reducing the fees on our investment products. And that is baked into the fabric of what we do. So often when you hear about Vanguard, you hear about clients, crew, and community. That's where all of our focus is. It's a very unique structure. No one else in the business does this. I think primarily people see financial institutions and they think about people, on Wall Street profiting off of them and taking that money and running away. And I think Vanguard, by definition, does the exact opposite. Anytime we make extra money, we return it to our shareholders, who are the people who own the funds, and our investors, and bring the cost down for everyone. And that is not only a part of our structure, but is really embedded in our culture. We're a company who constantly seeks to give back to our community and to our clients and to our crew. I'd say personally, from where I sit, the benefits package is something that's extremely helpful, especially in times like today, where the focus is on mental health, and the focus is on taking time off of work and not being burnt out. Very good paid time off package, very good free mental health sessions and therapy sessions. But more to the point, I think it's embedded in our structure that when you're on a team, the focus of that team and the leaders on that team should be making sure that the employees are doing well and employees are feeling good, because we know that if you can have a healthy life outside of work, you're going to bring your best self to work. So that's something that I think I've seen time and time again working at this company, and has really made a good impact on me. Is there anything you want to add to that, Brittany?
Yeah, I completely agree with everything mentioned. I know I have a couple of other experience with other financial firms, and I like to call like my journey to Vanguard kind of like my Goldilocks process of just kind of finding what's a nice match for me, especially with wanting to be a financial advisor. Financial advice can sometimes get a bad rep out there, unfortunately, of people being like taken advantage of. And it was my kind of journey to find Vanguard, to find a company that not only cares for its clients, but cares for its employees as well, and values kind of work-life balance and all of that. So I know it sounds cheesy, and I'm sure a lot of employers talk about this all the time, but I like truly, really believe that Vanguard does what's best for everyone. Like Eric mentioned, our corporate structure is very different. So we're really just giving back to the clients all the time. We have like a big like mission statement that's to take a stand for all investors, treat them fairly, and give them the best chance for investment success. You'll hear that coming to Vanguard over and over again, and it really, really matches up to what Vanguard does as a company. So it takes care of the clients, of course, but crew is what we call our employees. We have a nautical theme. So if Eric and I ever say something that you're like, what is that? It's just because we're speaking the Vanguard lingo with our nautical theme, but they truly care about the crew, get plenty of PTO, which is nice. You really get to communicate with your managers on like how you are feeling and how things are going, and have that honest communication, which I know can be hard, especially coming out of college. It just feels like you're afraid to speak up and afraid to like talk about what you're struggling with or what you're doing well. So really great open communication and values there. And then lastly, the community. Tons of volunteer opportunities. We have like a big campaign that runs all year round, that they like support 100% of donations. Any other charity that you care about out there, they'll do like a 50% match on that. We are given one VTO day a year, which is amazing, where you get an opportunity to go out in your community and just volunteer all day and still get paid for it. A lot of teams do it as kind of like a team building method to kind of team build, but you can also, if you just have a charity out there that you're passionate about, get that opportunity to go out there. It's something that even through the pandemic, they still stuck with and had plenty of like virtual opportunities that they recommended. So really those 3 C's that Eric mentioned are really Vanguard's values.
And I'll add on to that a little to give, my experience coming in. I quickly realized that Vanguard was a place that would, promote high performing diverse talent. And I'll give an example of that. When I first did an Explore Day, there was a panel of investment professionals there who did not graduate with finance or investments related degrees. And what I would find is that there were people who showed up to Vanguard, demonstrated that they were willing to work hard and wanted to learn and wanted to be part of something bigger than themselves. And Vanguard was able to invest in them, give them the resources to learn. And I mean, initially the training that I got was more financial knowledge than my family had up to that point. And those people were able to become, investment professionals working in a similar capacity to Brittany, not on the CFP track, but, having a book of business of investors for Vanguard that they were the main point of contact for Vanguard. And so, being somebody who comes from, I think, one young lady was a fashion and merchandising major, but just wanted to feel like she was having an impact in her community. And Vanguard's, can see that and invest in that and give you the tools to succeed. So I would definitely say that that's a very positive experience. And I tell everybody that was a real turning point for me, seeing Vanguard kind of walk the walk, so to speak, and not just have these sayings and slogans, but actually live and breathe kind of the mission that they exude. So I guess we can pause there and see, do we have any questions so far? I know we said a lot. All right, Brittany, do you want to jump into an overview of FADP and then I'll do IMDP after that?
Yeah, absolutely. So FADP again stands for Financial Advisor Development Program. You will hear a ton of acronyms at Vanguard. I'm sure it goes the same everywhere else, but it is a development program specifically targeted for financial planning majors and people that want to be financial advisors. So it is a 27-month rotational program. And so you first come into Vanguard right out of college and get straight into studying. So as part of being a financial advisor, a lot of licensing that goes with it. So I came in and I took my SIE, which is a very first series exams that you have to take, fairly new. My Series 7 and 66. You don't have to know what those things are, but they're kind of just the basics of finance. Talked about the basics of stocks and bonds, how things generally work, and also from a legal standpoint allows you to give specific financial advice. After passing those exams, you sit in the rotation, I guess, that Eric described, which is just the very frontline crew where you are taking calls from like those password changes and everything above that. And although it can be overwhelming, because of course it's like your first introduction to the company really coming out of studying, it is the absolute best learning experience. Like you truly get an understanding of everything that Vanguard can provide because you are thrown all different types of curveballs. But a great thing about being in a rotational program is that you are with peers that are around your same age, that have kind of similar backgrounds in terms of education, that are struggling at times just as much as you are. So definitely shouldn't be overwhelmed in the beginning. It's a lot of information, getting to know a company, getting to know how things work, but it's a great learning experience. And then after sitting there for like a month and a half, Then it was time to jump to CFP studying. So you get 6 weeks, which is amazing, to come into work and just study. So I was studying with my peers all day, every day. I have peers that don't work at Vanguard that have to take their CFP and they're studying after work or like in between their appointments. And it is very hard. It's very difficult to do. So to be given that opportunity to come in 6 weeks, my main job was to, not thrilling, but appreciate it, read textbooks, go through questions, be with my peers the whole entire day. You get very, very close because you spend a lot of time with them. But to get that opportunity to truly just focus on studying instead of having to juggle a job on top of that was amazing. So sit for 6 weeks doing that, and then I sat for my CFP in November. And then once you pass that, which don't worry, you don't have to pass on the first try, but once you pass that, the typical process is to go and sit in, it has different names, or it had different names since I sat in that rotation, but it used to be our portfolio implementation group. Now it's called ASG, or our advisor support group. But you sit in there for a month and a half and really get to be kind of the background for advisors. So you get advisors calling in that need help, like making a trade for one of their clients or updating like an automatic plan for one of their clients. So you're not necessarily yet in that advice role, which is honestly kind of nice because at that point, I don't think I knew quite enough to be sitting and giving advice, but you get to kind of see all the background work that goes into it and support advisors, which was amazing. And then that leads you until like you start in June, that leads you to December of the first half starting. And then you sit in for about 6-7 months, depends, in what we call our sales role. Sales, don't be afraid of that. It has a bad rep, but here at Vanguard, sales is very different. So you are taking inbound calls. So you are taking calls from people that are like, I want advice, like I need an advisor, like does Vanguard offer that? Or even sometimes it's like, I have a 401k over at Fidelity, which we don't use that word, we're all about Vanguard, but I have a 401k elsewhere and I want to move it to Vanguard. So it is really not that bad of a sales position, and you're really just taking those inbound calls and just getting clients to the right area, providing them with the information of exactly what Vanguard provides. And so you're kind of also getting closer to that advice full-time financial advisor, because you're talking to people that want financial advice, kind of hearing what their needs are, but then scheduling that appointment to actually speak with an advisor. And then you sit in your very last and longest rotation, which is actually the big one, a financial advisor in what's our team-based model, which you help manage assets between 50 and 500,000. So you are full financial advisor, giving financial advice, kind of that next role from sales. You're actually who you talk to, and you are having conversations really about anything, and you get to know so many different people with so many different backgrounds. And I love that area because you can talk to, I know personally, someone that's like my age and is like sometimes just starting out with their like first job out of college and they don't know what to do. Or you can talk to someone on the complete opposite side of the spectrum that's like 85 and they just want to make sure that like their kids don't have to rely on them if they have to go to like a health center or get additional health services. So you really get a wide variety of conversations that you talk about, but at the end of the day, just giving clients peace of mind and know that they have you to reach out to and are handling their investments. And then I'll keep it short. I can definitely go longer there. But after finishing up, you spend a whole year being in that kind of team-based model of financial advice between 50 and 500,000. And then you graduate successfully from the program, which is where I am now. So I am still a financial advisor, but bump up to our next level, which you have your own book of clients, own book of business. All financial advice still stays the same, but now I help manage assets between 500,000 and 2 million. So that's like the quick rundown of what the rotation looks like for FADP is what we call it. Can absolutely answer any questions, but Eric, definitely want to give you some time to review.
Brittany, that sounds like fun. Honestly, I'm thinking about my experience in IMDP, and I'm like, I don't know if we had that good of a time. But anyway, I'll give another experience here in the investment management development program, and this one is relatively new. I think FADP is also new as well. And I started this program back in 2018. It is a 24-month program that is 4 rotations through the investment management group. So you could be in a group like the investment strategy group doing research on burgeoning topics of investment strategy at Vanguard. You could be in equity investing, looking at our equity index products. Fixed income group, as the name implies, is fixed income trading. Or you might even be in a place like the portfolio review department, which looks at the strategic outlook of investment funds in the industry and analyzes how Vanguard should position themselves in the industry. So those are just a sample of the places you could end up. And even within those groups, there are multiple rotations. So I'll explain at a high level what those rotations are like, and then I'll talk about my experience and fill in color there. And contrasting it to FADP, it's not a specific rotation you would go through each time. You actually have the opportunity to work with a program manager that, based on your interest and based on business need, as well as based on places that would challenge you and develop you, you would be able to be placed in a rotation of your choice or something similar to what you want to do. And so I think that's interesting because it gives the ability for somebody to really express what they're interested in and express, use their networking and their research to decide where to go. And Danielle, it looked like we had a student drop off here. Should I keep going? Okay.
We're recording, so I would say keep going, give your
Gotcha.
information. We'll make sure that it gets sent out. Definitely.
Excellent. Okay, so with the investment management development program, like I described, 4 rotations, 6 months each. Each rotation is very unique. So I'll talk about the types of rotations you could get, with the understanding that any of these rotations can really pop up across the organization. A very popular rotation is a trading rotation. And now this means you're sitting down, trading stocks and bonds for our global investment products. So our mutual funds and ETFs. You're right in the trenches. This is the real ball game. There's little room for error, and you are putting our clients' money to work. But the good part about that is there's a ton of development opportunities here. I think the understanding is you're right out of college. You may not have had much experience in this. That's okay. Talking back to the kind of development opportunities I mentioned before, you're also going to be sitting next to people who've done this for 10, 15, sometimes 20 years. And it's up to them to be able to give you the opportunity to learn, but also turn around and add value very quickly. In these positions, even though you're not very tenured, you're still being relied on to add value and to improve the investment process in some way. So it's a really great opportunity not only to learn about different parts of the market, but try your hand at something new. For me, that was, hey, how does new technology look in some of these roles? We actually had an opportunity when I was on the investment strategy team to use social media to say, well, how does Vanguard look on an industry basis on Instagram, on LinkedIn? And some people even wanted to see us put out a Vanguard TikTok video. We didn't end up doing that, but that was actually a project we were given, which was, we do all this research and we try to influence the industry. How is that influence being perceived? Are people picking up on it? Are they talking about it? So that's just one example of a rotation you could get. Another one is, as we are growing our capabilities as a financial technology company, we actually do have rotations on our fintech strategies team, where you're working on the cutting edge of technology at Vanguard to implement radically new solutions, do research, or really just experiment on different aspects of the investment industry. So I know cryptocurrency and blockchain is a hot topic right now. There's actually a blockchain working group that researches digital assets and looks at the digitization of investments in our industry. And I think that's something that's really new and cool. I wasn't able to do one of those rotations, unfortunately, but I think that's something that, if that's something you're interested in, you actually have the opportunity to talk with your program manager, identify that as an opportunity, and potentially get placed in a rotation like that. Another one that I'll talk about is risk management, which I think is becoming extremely important as we have larger and larger assets under management, more different types of clients that we're working with. And the risk group actually cuts across the organization. So it doesn't just sit directly in investment management. It also looks at things like investment stewardship. We have, trillions of dollars in equity funds, which means we have the ability to vote for proxies for those funds that determine what the shareholders of that fund look like, or shareholders of that company look like, who's on the board, and what kind of strategic initiatives that they put in place. So for us, that looks like, how are they thinking about climate change for their company? How are they thinking about diversity, equity, inclusion in their company? How are they thinking about new products and new parts of the market where they may be interacting with people who aren't normally represented in their ideal group of consumers? We actually have the ability to interface with those companies, create a strategic plan, check on them and track them over time to say, how are you fitting into the plan that you created? Are you really meeting these goals? Ultimately, we realize that's only going to benefit our clients at the end of the day, because those stocks will be better companies and they will outperform and be long lasting. Remember, this is something where we are looking for long-term growth and long-term value in these stocks, not necessarily just quick quarterly returns. And so we believe it's worth our investment to say, can we see that these companies are building a sustainable business practice, a sustainable future, ESGs, environmental, social, and governance? So we want to look at all three of those things with these companies. And that's another example of a rotation you can do. So I think what I like about IMDP now is that it's becoming more and more customized. You can be able to tailor your experience to exactly what you want it to be and become an expert in a certain field. So I'll give an example of that, and then I'll go into my specific experience. We did have somebody who was very interested in fixed income indexing. So similar to how you have an S&P 500 that tracks close to a benchmark, you can do that with bonds as well. So we have a bond index team that generally trades our total stock market, or total bond market, total international bond market funds. But part of that is a larger ecosystem. Not only is it trading for bond funds, we're also having bond ETFs. So a specific individual wanted to get a holistic experience in the bond market. So not only were their first rotation was a trader on the bond index team, they then went to our ETF capital markets team and traded, and on the primary market traded bond ETFs. They then went to investment risk for our index products, and they capped that off being in our portfolio review department, looking at the landscape of bond index products and managing those products in the industry. So this person was able to get 4 different rotations in risk management, capital markets, fixed income, and portfolio review, but all kind of dealing with the same product, and was able to launch and go full time, having a very different experiences that they brought back to the bond indexing team, and was able to use that to be a very effective investment professional. And that's kind of an example of what this program can do for you. So I'll talk specific to my experiences. Wasn't as streamlined as that, but I think opposite of that, you can get very different experiences to figure out what you like. Me coming in, I didn't exactly know what I wanted to do. So coming from the retail investor group, where it's a relationship driven role, my first role in IMDP was in global broker and index relations. So what that allowed me to do is take my experience, relationship management on the retail side, looking with clients, and now is managing relationships for our brokers and our index providers. So for the index providers, I talked about S&P 500 before. So S&P, FTSE, MSCI, some of these large index providers that make the benchmarks that our funds track, as well as the brokers who are the trading counterparties for our equity and fixed income traders. So think your large bulge bracket banks, JP Morgan, Morgan Stanley, Goldman Sachs. I'm actually setting up meetings with the managing directors of the trading operation in these companies, and our team frequently made trips to New York City. Sometimes those brokers would come to Malvern, and we would talk about the relationship that Vanguard has with those brokers. So that was a good way for me to just hit the ground running and understand more about Vanguard's investing business before actually getting into the weeds. And that's exactly what I did with my second rotation. I went into the municipal short desk and was trading with those same counterparties for our municipal money market funds and bond funds. And I always say trading's a team sport. So that was a very intense 6 months where I'm working with other traders on the desk to, we have money coming into the funds constantly, and we're having to put that money to work. So seeing the layout of what's available in the market at that time, and making decisions on what's the best place to put our clients' money. And the focus here is on safety, quality, and liquidity, but we also do have the opportunity to look for performance and invest in things on a relative value basis that are going to outperform the market. This is active fixed income investing after all. So at the end of the day, you do want to beat your competition, you want to beat your benchmark, but you also want to do so in a liquid and high quality way. Throughout that rotation, I realized I wanted to build more skills in quantitative and statistical analysis. So I was able to get the opportunity in the next rotation to go to the investment strategy group, where I conducted quantitative research. And in particular, it was close to the idea of concentrated ownership. So going back to the investment stewardship example, while our investment stewardship team was working with companies on how to be more sustainable in their practices, we were doing quantitative research on the effects of that, consulting we were doing with the companies. So we would, do very large regressions and using Python and MATLAB and doing, very rigorous statistical analysis. And out of actually that rotation, I was able to publish a paper about trading and ownership, which was, not everyone gets to do that. So I was very fortunate to have that opportunity to publish a paper to where now I can say I'm a published author based on doing that rotation. And the final rotation is in the quantitative equity group. This is a newer part of Vanguard's business, active equity investing, but along the lines of the quantitative aspect of it, we are using it's model-driven investing. So even though we still look at fundamental aspects of companies, like how much cash do they have in their balance sheet, what are their revenues like, what is their debt to equity ratios look like, or their PE growth, price over equity, price over earnings. So instead of looking at some of those things and making single stock selections, we actually would create an algorithm that would systematically look at companies over time and change the investments based on how those fundamental factors are changing. So that was actually that. Unfortunately, that rotation got cut a little short. March 2020 happened right in the middle of the rotation, and we got launched into permanent roles. And at the time, the demand for traders was higher, so I got launched into being a money market trader, which was my second rotation after that. So you can see throughout that those 4 rotations, very different rotations doing different things. Overall, what I realized through those was that I came in not knowing very much, but quickly learned that my goal was to use emerging technologies to enhance the investment process. And every step along the way, I was able to get just little nuggets of information that would build into having that idea for myself. And I'm now leading with that, being kind of a subject matter expert in Python programming, automation, and using, robotics to enhance the trade process. So I know that was a lot of information, and hopefully if we get to do a session on this in the future, that'll get a lot of questions from the students, because it was definitely it was a variable experience, and everybody who's been in IMDP, I'm sure, has a different experience of what they were able to accomplish.
Awesome. Well, I do have a question. I feel as though I hear questions from students all the time. So when we meet with employers, I'd love to, or professionals, I'd love to kind of bring those questions to you guys. So in the review of this video, they can kind of be like, yeah, I was thinking that. And then, you've answered it. So we've kind of hit the nail on the head. So my first question for you two personally, what made you choose Vanguard? I know that your background is in finance or accounting, in that world. So what made you choose Vanguard first coming out?
Yeah, I can kick it off to start. So What was huge for me in choosing a company is like I also wanted them to align up to kind of, not that they were like standards, but like what I wanted out of an employer as well. So I think I know a lot of the times as a student, you are like so worried about making yourself desirable to employers, but I think you should also kind of like flip it around and also look at these employers and make sure they're like matching up to your standards and like what you want to do as well. So something that I thought hugely at Vanguard is just how much they were going to put into me as an individual and also, yes, as their employee. But I get to go in being a CFP at 23 years old. There are not a lot of people that get to do that. And not that I have any plan to leave Vanguard anytime soon, but that's something I can take with me for the rest of my life. So it was very important for an employer to show that they also care about me. Yes, what I can like do for them and the expertise and work that I can do for them, but also that they value me as an individual and as a person. And I really appreciate that Vanguard does that. And a huge thing also was just being part of a rotational program was huge. We have tons of rotational programs, so not just the ones we talked about, but there's ones for like people that want to be more like leaders or managers. There's one specifically for people that are more like in IT and on like the technical side, which is a huge advantage that I didn't necessarily realize how much it was going to be important to me. But coming straight out of college, it's overwhelming, especially with such a large company. So being part of a group with like-minded, hardworking individuals, but that were also my age was huge because especially with being a financial advisor, I'll be honest, my peers are normally a lot older than me and also a lot of the time men. So it is very different. So to come in with peers that are my age, just got out of college, or just going through all the struggles of transitioning right along with me, and that I can build like a true connection and friendship with was huge. I think at the time, kind of signing up for the program, I was like, yeah, I guess sure that sounds nice, but now I have gone and experienced it. It made like the world of a difference.
Yeah, I think I kind of alluded to this earlier. I got the sense that Vanguard was a company that was true to their word, but also was in really open to investing in any person that came just to work hard, right? And I know a lot of people, a lot of my peers out of college, where the roles that they went into kind of assumed that they had a certain level of knowledge already, and would kind of turn away if somebody wasn't already up to some kind of standard that they set. Vanguard wasn't like that. It was a company that took people who were hardworking, who were interested, who are ready to roll their sleeves up and get to work, and invest in them, give them the tools to be able to succeed. There's quite a rotational culture at Vanguard, and there's a lot of hiring within at Vanguard where you get an opportunity to, even if you're not in a rotational program, to do an internship on another desk that maybe you're interested in. Or, there's an open door policy with a lot of senior leaders where if you're interested in what they do, have a coffee chat with them, sit down for 15 minutes and pick their brain. I think aspects like that, I didn't realize I would really enjoy. That would be overwhelmingly positive from my experience. And so that's what brought me to Vanguard. I'll answer a question you didn't ask, Danielle, but what's keeping me at Vanguard as well is that the development opportunities never stop. It's something where once you're in the door, it's not like, okay, we've initially invested in you. Now you just have to take yourself wherever you're going to go. The exact opposite is true. I'm constantly offered opportunities to lead. Just earlier today, actually, I was able to moderate a conversation about trading where I'm talking with senior level traders that, I've been at Vanguard a lot longer than I have, but I was just given the opportunity. Somebody asked me, hey, do you want to do this? Is this something you're interested in? And that's one small example. I mean, there are multiple opportunities to volunteer for positions, or just to be able to put your name out there and not feel like, if you failed, that's it. You're going to get fired, like, you're out the door, or it's going to follow you for the rest of your career. Instead, it's actively encouraged that people try new things and to develop themselves. We're also given resources through different learning platforms like LinkedIn Learning or Code Academy, to build our skills, continuously, maybe in something we never thought we would do or weren't previously interested in, just to have that ability to learn something new. So the fact that there's constantly this, is really a culture of learning and development. That's something that keeps me there on top of the things that attracted me initially.
Thank you for sharing that. I love to hear that even in your current position, you still have the opportunity to intern and to learn to do something else like cross learning, right? So that if you had an interest in another area, you can kind of dip your toe in there and kind of expand your knowledge to that. So that's awesome for anybody who's looking for that type of opportunity to know. My next question is going back to your interview process. What do you think, or what are some nuggets that you can share with our students who would be preparing, whether it's for one of these programs, for an internship, for a full-time position, any kind of best practices or just what you've learned throughout your process of being onboarded? I know, Eric, I think you said it's been 4 years, but Brittany, you're a little bit newer. So anything that you can remember that you'd like to share?
I can start with this one. And what I will say is that even though it's been a couple years for my process, I'm in similar situations to that all the time. I mean, I wouldn't say it's an interview, but you have the opportunity to speak with senior leaders or people who could one day be your boss. So I approach it in the same way. And what I always think about is it's a conversation, right? You're sitting there across from somebody else. And actually, to Brittany's point before, kind of should be trying to assess what it would be like to work for them and to be on their team just as much as they want to know if they want you to join their company. So, take the questions as they come, take time to think about them. But it is just a conversation. Be relaxed, don't be tense. Talk to them like you just talked to somebody across the table. I felt like that goes a long way. And I will say, more specific to the IMDP or the rotational program interviews, the STAR method is very popular. STAR, situation, task, action, results. Or, some of those are, sometimes people pick other words for it, but basically it's anytime somebody asks you a question like, give me an example of a time that was difficult for you or a challenge you faced when you were at work or at school, and how did you, get through it? A lot of those questions can be very easily be answered like that. So you set it up by explaining the situation, and the situation has some, at some point comes to a head, and there's some task that, or some problem that comes up. At which point you did some action to try to solve that, and then you talk about the results. And the most important part to me on that is the result, because what you want to show and demonstrate is that you were able to learn from something or add value to something. So even if it's you get a question like, describe a time that you completely messed up, you dropped the ball. So the result's not always going to be, and in the end, I was great, and everyone knows that, right? It's going to be, I learned something, right? I messed up, I didn't do what I was supposed to do, but here's what I came away with it. Here's how I was able to learn and be able to apply that to something else. I think demonstrating that is going to be extremely important in any of the interviews that you have.
Yeah, and I can talk kind of generally how my interview process just went and kind of expectations there. So I was fortunate enough, the interview that I did coming in as an intern, I didn't have to interview again for my full-time position. But as an intern back when I guess everyone was on campus and recruiters were also there, I attended on my campus just the regular kind of behavioral interview. Like Eric mentioned, is really just the conversation, get to know you. So one of my biggest tips is don't feel like you have to overly impress about all your technical stuff that you know and all of that background, come out and read all your books and textbooks and think that you need to express that. It can definitely depend on the role that you're going for, but I think what's most important is one, to just show that you are there to learn and you're there to develop, and you're not necessarily coming in thinking that you know everything and that you're ready to go ahead and start right off the bat, but that you've gone through experiences, you're kind of learning how you like to learn and what works for you, and that you're open to the idea of being taught different ways. So the technical stuff, it's great. Absolutely. But at the end of the day, Vanguard is huge, especially with rotational programs and especially just with the culture of kind of always moving around, is that you show that you are interested in going to put in that work to develop yourself. So that is what I think my first interview was mainly on. And then there was a second round of interviews where I actually went to Vanguard's campus. So I went to Vanguard's campus. It was an all-day interview at that time. I think it's similar, just virtual now, but it's 2 interviews. One is still that behavioral. So again, just getting to know you, especially going for a financial advisor position. It was also kind of like, can she talk to people? Like, is she somewhat of a people person? Can somewhat hold a conversation? And then the second piece, which I remember being so definitely afraid of, was an actual like kind of case study. And they like gave me a case and they gave me a client and was like, if you were an advisor, what would you recommend? And to be honest, at this point, it was like September or October of my junior year because I was going for the internship and I had taken like one financial planning course or was like halfway through a financial planning course. And I was like so nervous. I was like, I don't really know all this stuff. Like I am nowhere close to being ready to be an advisor, but I made it. So it goes along the way again of just not trying to overly complicate things, throw all the technical knowledge out there. Vanguard is big on helping clients. So if you're expressing during your interview that the route you would take would be getting to know your client, doing what's best for them and giving them best end result, of course, everything in between, that's what their main objective is. So I think going for interviews, no matter what, whether Vanguard or outside companies, just don't overthink it. Truly just be yourself and treat it like a normal conversation.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So my last question is we had some students who were on the line and just students to know we have 109 programs here at DSU. So just thinking, do you have to have a financial, an accounting, a economic degree to work at Vanguard? Are you guys... Can you speak to that? Or do you know of any of your colleagues that maybe came from a different track and are working with you today?
Yeah, and no, not at all. So you will meet a ton of people at Vanguard. I have peers that are now financial advisors that like majored in history and like English. And although Vanguard is a finance company, it doesn't necessarily mean that all jobs are like really finance related. There are plenty of like technology jobs. There are plenty of just like management jobs and just coaching individuals and people, or on the HR side, kind of recruiting and bringing people into Vanguard. So you don't have to be intimidated. Like, I don't really know too much about finances. I don't know what a mutual fund or ETF is. There are plenty of people that come into Vanguard on the exact same page. You'll definitely learn as time goes on. It's also kind of a huge advantage because like you'll have a 401k and you kind of know somewhat of how to manage your own finances. So that is a nice plus, but you don't have to have a finance background at all. You will know tons of people that came in from all different areas, were like teachers before previously coming into Vanguard. So don't feel intimidated there.
And the only thing I'll add to that is, what are qualities you should have if you want to come to Vanguard? I think if you can demonstrate leadership in some capacity with anything you've done in college, whether that's being, an assistant in the classroom, being in a student organization, volunteering at your local charity, if you can demonstrate that you are a go-getter in some capacity, your major is not going to matter really at all. I think there are some foundational skills that you kind of have to be successful. It's not even unique to Vanguard. I think, many different companies would like that. And, it's having intellectual curiosity, being able to ask questions and to learn from people, and, showing that you have the ability to lead and add value on your own. So I think those are 3 key things to have. And if you're a history major, that's okay. We'll take you too.
I love it. I love it. I think that's the biggest thing here is to try to share with our students that most of us don't land in the majors that we majored in, right? I mean, I after maybe 12, 13 years, I ended up back here, but I definitely went into a spring of business. So that's very important for them to understand and to know. I really do want to thank you guys for joining us today. Please know that this will be impactful as we share this out for our students to be able to view at a time that will work better for them. But if you want to give any like last remarks or last words before we close this out.
Yeah, there should be. I think applications are still open for internships next year, and as Brittany said, there are more than just the two. There are internships that are aligned with the rotational programs. So there's more than just than just the ones we mentioned. So please feel free, go on. I think it's jobs.vanguard.com. Search for internships. Our offices are in Malvern, PA, which is just outside of Philadelphia, Charlotte, North Carolina, and Scottsdale, Arizona. And we have a new office coming in Dallas, Texas. So you may see opportunities start to show up for all of those. So yeah, please go online and feel free to reach out if you have any other questions.
Yeah, absolutely. Feel free to reach out. I was definitely in your shoes, so I know what the process is like, but put your name out there, show your face. Eventually, it will start ringing a bell when recruiters are out there. So attend as many events as you can. You absorb information, and just don't forget to kind of switch the interview process around and really get to know the companies and make sure they align to your values as well.
Awesome. I truly thank you guys so much for joining us today and giving us all the important information that we need to know for those who are interested in joining your team there at Vanguard. Mrs. Poe, is there anything that you would like to say before we close out?
I'd like to thank Mr. White, Ms. Harris. Thank you so much for taking the time out to speak to our students and provide a lot of valuable and helpful hints that they will need to be able to apply for opportunities at Vanguard. We are always so appreciative of your company that takes the time to be able to expose our students to the real world and that they have many opportunities no matter what their major is. The point of the matter is that they're staying connected and that they can learn so much from your opportunities and from you as well. So please don't take it lightly that we are so appreciative, and we do thank you for your time, for your effort to be able to reach out and help us. Thank you again.
All right. Thank you guys.
Happy to do it. Thanks.
All right.
Thank you.
For the rest of your day.
All right.